useful to have a larger audience to talk about turning L&D into business results. So just to let you know what we're going to be talking about today, just a couple of key clients that I'd like to share with you: Everton Football Club and Markel International, for whom Seth and Hilary have both worked, where we have gone into those organisations with a full understanding of what the impact needs to be and what the clients are looking to achieve before we've delivered the learning event. So we were looking at tasks, not topics. We were looking to achieve something for the client, not deliver a training topic. With COVID over, we don't want to talk about the pandemic too much, but what we've seen, he says, while setting the scene, is that the investment in learning and development over the past 12 months has dropped significantly and is only just starting to return. Part of the issue with that is that a lot of people still need to feel like they're engaged and that they are helping their individuals to learn. So there's been a shift to online learning. And by online learning, I mean e-learning specifically, that isn't instructor-led. That has prompted a lot of organizations to shift away again from e-learning, as they are not getting the, I won't say return on investment, I'll say return on expectation that they wanted. So whilst they have provided a learning provision for their people who are able to access these things, it's self-directed learning, it's self-paced learning. They get to go on and acquire some knowledge, but what they're not doing is able to develop skills with the people we've spoken to. I'm not saying this doesn't exist, because it absolutely does with gamification, but we'll talk about that shortly. What we're seeing is that there isn't the push to develop skills and change behavior that there was when it was instructor-led learning in the classroom. So we've had to change that. And why should we change that? We should be changing that because we have to be able to prove our investment for our clients. So as I've just said, investment in learning and development has been dropping. Clients are shifting to an online for a short-term fix. Should they do that? My belief is no. And I'll tell you why. It's because, as I've just mentioned, we haven't been able to develop skills and change the behaviors that we've been able to do with instructor-led learning. That's because the reason for implementing the online learning was to give people something that tried to make them feel as if they were still at work and in the workplace, even though they were at home working. What we need to do in order for L&D investment to return back to pre-pandemic levels is to start demonstrating where our investments are, and start demonstrating the impact that we have on our client organizations. So, and what are those? How do we do that? What are we measuring and why are we doing it? The easiest evaluation method that people use for the effectiveness of learning is Kirkpatrick. Levels 1 and 2 are, how did you feel after the course? Can you remember any of it? Which is very nice, but it doesn't have a demonstrable link. It doesn't correlate necessarily to business impact. What does is observing changes in behavior and having results on the bottom line, is impacting an increase in turnover or improving productivity or increasing profit within the organization. And they're at level 3s and 4. We look at those in two areas. We look at those as reputational. So are we attracting the right candidates? People want to come and work with us. What's our standing in the industry, in our marketplace? Are we engaged with people? Are we winning awards for the learning and development we're doing that makes us stand above our clients? And that's a measurable impact. And we also look, as I said, at the bottom line. The bottom line can either be an increase in profit as a result of some learning intervention, an increase in productivity, which we can measure and show you how we do that, or an increase in reputation around around our industry. So I realize I've repeated that point a couple of times, but it is important. We have to understand our impact on the business. There's a point here about learning and development doesn't have to be a cost center. I think too often, and if anybody here agrees or disagrees, do say, but too often we we view learning and development as a cost center. It's somebody to look after the compliance elements of what we're doing. L&D is a department that provides the training so that people can be a bit better. What we're not doing is saying, right, and I used this example the other day with Zachary. If we recruited a telesales person on a salary of, making these figures up, £25,000 a year, and their target was £15,000 a year, well, that would be lunacy, because we've got a cost that's taking out of the business and it isn't giving us any return. It's certainly not giving us a return to make it sustainable. And I think a lot of organizations have looked at learning and development as a cost center and have said, well, we know that we need to provide training to people to make them feel good about this. And this is the cost of having a training center. It may even be that there's an additional cost as we use outsourced training providers to help our training center to deliver this. But the impact of that isn't really measured. And it's certainly, with some people that I've worked with in the past, it isn't seen as a revenue generator for the organization. And here at Azimuth, we absolutely disagree with that position. We think it should be a revenue generator for the business. It should be able to have an impact, and you should be able to measure that. Well, we should be using the scientific method. Is it observable? Is it measurable? Is it repeatable? Like I say, whether that's pure figures or whether that's tangible via the periphery, those perioperative things of engagement, of positioning in the marketplace, etc. Two clients that we've done those for in different areas are with Markel International, who are a global insurance firm, and also with Everton Football Club. So at Markel, we've been able to measure our impact commercially, and we've got some figures to talk about. We will make up those figures so that we're not sharing what people's salaries are and what the impact is, of course, but the figures and percentages, well, the percentages of improvement are correct, and we've downplayed salaries, etc., to make it more generic. With Everton Football Club, what we've been able to do is show how our impact has enabled them to focus on other areas of the business and increase engagement and get recognition and training awards, global recognition for what they've been doing with their people. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you're not measuring at levels 3 and 4, according to Kirkpatrick, so behaviors or results, then it is just a cost center. And should we be doing it minus the compliance element? Don't know, but hopefully I'll pass over to Hilary, and Hilary will tell us a little bit more about Markel International and the program that we've been running there.
Thanks, Paddy, and welcome everyone. It has been a fascinating year for learning and development, for management, for organizations. Very, very tough, a real challenge for leadership. And with Markel, we were working with them before lockdown kicked off last year, and we had a program with them called Managing People and Performance, which was a 2-day program. It was working very well. We'd been running it for some time. The feedback was very good. When lockdown came, there was a real question of, okay, well, we can't do the 2-day face-to-face, so let's postpone it all until after lockdown. And we persuaded them to have a go at running the program without massive change to it, except instead of a 2-day program face-to-face, we agreed with them we'd run it as 4 half-days on Zoom. So we now have a modular program with 4 half-days, 3-hour sessions on Zoom. Some people say 3 hours on Zoom, that's a long time, but actually, as long as it's an interactive session, as long as it's focused, and as long as people are allowed to really engage and think about things, as well as getting some useful input, then actually the time whizzes by and people say, wow, that was quick. So that's a really important thing about the difference between online but non-interactive, where people are picking up knowledge, they're reading through stuff, they're doing e-learning, and online with an instructor-led, as Paddy was talking about, where we're not just working on knowledge, we're working on engaging people, we're working on getting them to think, we're working on getting them to reflect. Within half an hour of session 1 kicking off, people have already written down an action point that they're going to take. And that happens every time. We've now run the program. I think we're on to our 7th cohort now, and we've got 3 more booked. We did initially have the sessions 1 week apart, but we recommended that shifting it to 2 weeks apart would be better, and that between each module, you'd have pair or trio coach buddies who would hook up with each other on the phone or Zoom, and just ask, what did you get? What have you learned? What have you tried? What have you put into practice? So that we're actually enabling people to start co-coaching and building more of a coaching culture without needing an instructor there all of the time. It also, one of the big advantages of turning a 2-day face-to-face program into a modular Zoom program is that instead of getting a massive shot in the arm over 2 days and having 20 things that you need to try and go and implement on day 3 when you get back to work, we're drip feeding, we're giving people an opportunity to identify some things, go away, practice, meet up with their coach buddy, come back. And because they're coming back a couple of weeks later and they know they're going to get asked, what have you tried, what's worked? There's a sense of friendly peer pressure competition, which really makes a difference to how people engage. So as opposed to the online e-learning, where you may well be by yourself, or there may be a webinar where you're having information put to you, this is a real interactive process which engages hearts and minds. It shares some useful mental models that are really practical for managers to input, to put into practice. And it's made a very big difference. So the aim of Managing People and Performance program is to improve management and leadership impacts. And notice that we're talking here about impacts rather than knowledge and skill. You may pick up knowledge, you may pick up skill, but if you don't implement it, if you don't change your action and behavior, the impact won't change. So we're really interested in impact change. And very specifically within Markel, we were looking at improving talent management and talent development by helping managers to have better one-to-ones, to have better performance conversations using increased emotional intelligence, create clearer and more inspiring goals, develop their teams more proactively, not just reactively, not just either focusing on the go-getters who are saying, give me, give me, give me, and the managers are responding to that, or the underperformers where we say, now we've got to have one-to-ones and we've got to try and lift their performance. It's not just those, but it's everyone. And it's thinking about, how do I, as a manager and leader, help each person in my team shift up a gear? Wherever their starting point is, wherever we want them to get to in the end, how do I, through my one-to-ones, through my goal setting with them, through my feedback, through my coaching skills, how do I shift the dial for each person, shift them up a little bit, so that next time the feedback can be, great, you've shifted, that's fantastic. And now let's look at the next thing. And so that everyone's on a continuous improvement curve. One of the things about this is, if your boss is asking you to continuously improve, but you're not seeing them model this, there can be a real mismatch. Oh, you're asking me to shift the dial, but I'm not seeing you shift the dial. And one of the things that we're getting people to do on this program is go back and talk to people about what they're learning, about what they're going to try and do, and come back and tell us. There's also some encouragement to do some 360 feedback informally, getting people to say, look, these are the manager expectations. I think I'm doing okay on this, but could do better here. What do you think I'm good at? And what do you think I could do better at? So we're encouraging managers to seek feedback, not just give feedback. And frankly, great feedback cultures are built a lot more by more senior people seeking feedback than more senior people giving feedback, because it's modeling an interest in learning and development, an interest in change. The other things that we're getting people to do are evaluate performance more effectively. There are some managers who find it very difficult to say you're anything but good or excellent. But actually, we need managers to feel comfortable having those difficult conversations. And this Managing People and Performance program enables people to do that. And during the program, we get people practicing, and between each module, we get the buddies practicing their coaching and feedback skills with each other, so in a safe space. The output that we've seen from this is managers and those being managed saw significant change in productivity. Literally, within on the second module, managers were coming back saying, I've delegated a bit more, I've freed up a bit more time, my one-to-ones are already better. And this is before we've even got into the feedback and coaching skills module, which is module 3. Already they're making a difference. And when we asked them, what sort of differences has it made to your time? Because for most managers, their own time is the biggest bottleneck. If I'm going to coach and develop, if I'm going to do great one-to-ones, if I'm really going to engage my staff, how do I do that and keep up with all my work? And of course, one of the key things is I've got to delegate more, but I've got to delegate, not dump, and feel like I'm empowering and developing people through delegation and motivating them, inspiring them, rather than making them feel like you're just dumping stuff on me. So if I can delegate a bit more, I can create a bit more time to do the management and leadership conversations and do them better. And managers were saying, I'm saving at least half an hour a week. And so over a period of few months, the 4 sessions of 3 hours a week, they're already recouping just in the time that they save by being a bit more effective, by planning their one-to-ones a bit better. And their one-to-ones are being shorter because they're getting faster to the point. Their one-to-ones are better because they're doing them with greater emotional intelligence. And based on the feedback that we're getting, it suggests a return on investment of at least 84,000, maybe up to 181,000 on a four module program, which is costing them under 10,000. So if we're being a bit more prudent, it's at least 17,000 return. But as I say, probably 84,000 and possibly up to as much as 181,000. But the key thing that we know is that we're not even measuring on this some of the things that could be a really significant impact as well. So we could be looking at some things like how are grievances going down? What's the absence rate? Is sickness going down? What are the staff survey results for a manager who's been on the program and who hasn't? Are the staff survey results heading in the right direction? What are the staff turnover figures, and particularly of the people we want to keep? And what's happening with underperformers? 6 months down the line, are they still there underperforming? Or are they shifted on the 9 box? If you've come across the 9 box exercise, which is 3 up, 3 across, the 3 across is around potential and the 3 up is around performance. And if you've got people in the bottom left-hand box, they're low on performance and low on potential, and they're still there a year later, that says to you something about what the managers are doing. Either that person should be shifted up, or they're probably in the wrong role and we should be having tough conversations and managing them into another role or into another business. And are the managers equipped to have those difficult conversations? The answer that we're getting from this program is very much, yes, we know that we're saving time. Yes, we know that there's probably 10% increased productivity. We know that there are other things that will be positively impacted, but at the moment, we're not measuring those, but we could. And that's the story about Markel. Hopefully that's been interesting. Paddy, is there anything you want me to add before we hand over to Seth?
No, I don't think it's just a summary of the figures that you've used there. I mean, if we were taking the conservative estimate that we had of 84,500 when we took a benchmark salary of £50,000, which is it wasn't accurate, but we used that for proving impact over the course of 10 sessions. That would be, over close to £850,000 of increased productivity for a cost of less than just under £20,000 for the entire program, which is a phenomenal return on investment. And that's using conservative figures that we've only that we suggested. If we did a full return on investment for this particular client, I think we'd see the figure would be well over £1 million in increased productivity, and we'd have higher engagement and all of those positive points that Hillary's just mentioned under outcome.
And just to wrap up, I'd say the key thing is you can't get that kind of managerial change, leadership change through e-learning.
No.
You can develop some knowledge, you can develop maybe read about a model, but having the discussion, bringing real things, bringing real conversation to it, being able to ask questions. How would that work? Here's an example. Talk me through it. That is so powerful. And just giving people the time to say, this is what I think I'm good at, and this is what I could get better at, and asking them the question, how could you get better? What's one thing? And they say, well, I think I could try this. Great, go have a go. Come back next time, tell us. So key thing is the interaction. That changes hearts and minds, and therefore changes behaviors, and therefore changes impact, and that can hit the bottom line.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well summarized, Hilary. Thanks very much. Thanks. The second client that we wanted to talk about today was Everton Football Club. And I'll start giving a little intro for Everton. When we first started working with them, there was no learning and development department. There was no curriculum training courses. And basically, they didn't have anything. They had an HR department that was in a compliance or operational issue, but with aspirations to create the best club in the world to work for. And they are well on their way to proving that that's who they are now. And the principal consultant there was Seth. Seth, can you talk a little bit more about what we did on day one with Everton, what we went in and did, and then you and I can talk about the impact that's had and the space it's freed up for them to focus on their other elements.
Sure. Thanks, Paddy. Thanks, everyone. Great to be here as part of this event. And first of all, I just wanted to say that, you know, in terms of some of those overarching principles of how we engage with learners, I absolutely agree with everything that Hilary has said, and I'm slightly irritated that he said them, which means I can't really say them again. And I knew I should have gone first. But moving on from that, Everton is, you know, Everton's a great club. I've been in learning and development for 20 years now, and I've delivered training to a wide range of organizations, but Everton will always occupy a special place in my heart. I consider myself an honorary Blue now. You know, it's a great club, it's a great organization. And one of the really interesting things about them is you get such a wide range of roles, perhaps a more extreme spectrum of jobs represented in the room than with any other client that I've worked for. Because yes, you know, you've got people in client-facing roles, you've got people in HR, you've got people in marketing, but then you've also got individuals that are coaches, they're football coaches, they're coaching children, or they're working in the community with children, with the community, working with the homeless, working with certain schools, and, you know, really doing a wide range of jobs. And they're all in the classroom together with me. And, you know, how do you inspire all of those people, but also how do you present one training session that will meet everybody's needs, because those needs can be so different. That first day, Paddy, I do remember it really well. I mean, one of the things that really stands out is that we were running a leadership program for essentially the board of directors, you know, the most senior people within the firm. And that was a leadership program that was over 6 days, split obviously over 3 or 4 months, but still held in the bar at Goodison Park, which was wonderful. You know, you had to remove the beer mats from the tables as you were setting up before we could all get down to work. And so from that point, you know, we, for want of a better word, I think we kind of infiltrated the club, and nearly everybody, I think at some point, went through a program. We did leadership skills, we did presentation skills, we did negotiation skills, emotional intelligence, influencing. But just going back to my point about, you know, how do you inspire people to commit to the process? You know, whether it's face-to-face training as it was originally, now with Everton, of course, as with Markel, what we have done is we've dipped our toes into the wonderful world of virtual learning. And, you know, the tools are different, the duration is different, but the people are the same, the needs are the same. And it still comes back to this idea, how do you inspire people to commit to this process? Because no one's going to do anything because we ask them to or tell them to. And that ownership is absolutely critical. And whether it was that first leadership program that we run, or any of the programs that we've run subsequently, whether it's face-to-face or e-learning orientated, for me, it always comes down to the fundamental learning process, the learning cycle, those three stages, which for me are absolutely critical to success: the immersion, the reflection, and the translation. You have to find a way to immerse people in an experience that sparks their curiosity. That's what gets the commitment. And if you can put them into an immersive experience, whether that's an exercise, whether that's a discussion, whether they're building something or doing something, and get that kind of curiosity going about what this means for them and how far they can take their skills, and then get them to reflect on that. And for me, the reflection piece is so key, where you're almost literally asking coaching questions. You know, what did you get from this? What can you apply to your own role, your own job? What's important or meaningful to you? That's what's allowed us to take programs and make them tailored, powerful, relevant to this wide spectrum of roles. The immersion, then the reflection, and then of course, as Hilary spoke of, that constant, ongoing, robust action planning. You've got to make it specific. We can't be woolly with the actions. We have to manage or influence individuals to say, well, no, specifically, what are you going to do? What difference is that going to make? What support do you need? What are the potential obstacles and blockers to that? What are you going to ask for in terms of support from your manager and from your club? And the great thing is, because we've done that in so many different ways, with so many individuals within the club over, you know, so many different programs, I really feel that we've been able to influence in a really positive way the overall put my teeth back in, the overall DNA of the club, in terms of not just what they do, but how they do it, and the genuine positive difference that they make, not just to their supporters, but to the community and to Liverpool as a whole. And it's been really inspiring for me.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. I mean, some of those points that you talk about, look, the work they do in the community, I didn't realise that Everton has its own school, the Everton Academy. It's not a football school, it is it's an academy, it's a secondary school. What Seth has been able to do by creating that inspiration for people through those training courses is effectively take over the entire curriculum for Everton, so that we know that people are getting the learning they need at the appropriate time throughout the season whilst at the club. That's freed up space for the HR department to look overall at what are the values of the organisation and how do they reflect what we do as a business, because ultimately it is a business. So what are the values? How do they impact on our behaviours? How engaged are our people? With that free capacity, they've been able to gain themselves a position on the Times, on the best 100 companies list. Over the first year they were on that list, they were in the low 90s. The second year they improved that position by 25 places. The third year they improved it by a further 11, and I'm pretty sure they've gone on, they're now in the top 50 companies on the best 100 companies list. And that's because HR are no longer having to focus on why are we doing this training and what are we doing. They understand that every single session we do with them improves engagement, it reduces attrition, it has the right people in the right place with the correct skills, demonstrating the best behaviors, and they can focus on driving the engagement and making sure that the values of the organization are reflected inwards and outwards to the rest of the community, so that the community work they do through their charity work and their foundations and how the school operates as the academy are all reflective of what Everton wants to do. And like I say, in terms of, you know, we can impact the bottom line, which we're doing very much with Markel, or we can impact the reputation and the engagement, which we're doing a lot of at Everton Football Club. But all of those things come down to one fundamental point, which is learning and development in those two organisations is not a cost centre. It's having a positive impact on the organisation financially, reputationally, and just summarised in completion with commercially. So the understand what we're being asked to do and why, and then we can prove that impact to the rest of the business. And that's the most important thing for us, is being able to improve impact. Yeah, Zach, do you have, this is the first time that we've discussed this with you, of course, so do you have, as moderator, any questions?
Yeah, I think it was quite interesting listening to both Hilary and Seth, and I think from a management and people and performance point of view, it really rings true in terms of getting people to immerse in it and really think about it. It's something we've gone through at Epic 8 with Paddy's help as well. So it's in terms of building that culture up and building up that management operating system in the way that you carry out one-to-ones and create that continual progress and improvement within the staff. And I think that that's really been quite valuable as a customer, effectively, as Azimuth, who's sat on this call. I guess what I would like to hear from is if any of the attendees who are all still on, by the way, have got any questions of Hilary, Seth, or Paddy about what you've heard today or the work that they've done with any of their clients. That'd be really good to hear. There's a Q&A box at the bottom, so please do fire across.
Zach,
Looks
yeah. With the numbers, can people just unmute and speak out their questions?
No, it's Q&A on the webinars.
Okay.
We could have probably done that. We weren't sure exactly how many were going to join, so it becomes
so
quite
probably just worth saying that this session was recorded and that you can contact Paddy via the Azimuth website in case you need to leave. Paddy, is there anything else? Just if people need to leave, is there
I really should have put the website up there, shouldn't I?
Sorry?
I really should have the website on this final slide. Yeah,
it's no stress, Paddy. There's an email going out before with all the details for Azimuth on, and there's one going out straight after to thank everyone too.
Great.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
No problem. And we'll make the recording available online probably later today or tomorrow as well, and we can share that around with everyone in case you want to forward it on to any colleagues.
So just to add to that, if anyone needs to rush but wants to put a question, we'd all be happy to connect with you, connect via the email. Otherwise, if you want to put a question in the Q&A question box, please do, and we'll pick that up now.
Brilliant. We've still got a few attendees on, so I don't know if they're frantically writing their questions, but there's none come through yet. I'd like to thank Hilary, Seth, and Paddy for putting on the show today. Thanks for talking us through this. I think it's been really powerful and interesting to hear. And yeah, I think we've kind of covered everything off. We've got something's just come in. How do you report on the HR measurements? Are you reduction in sickness via report or other means? So I'm going to pop that one over probably to you, Paddy, to kick us off on the answers to that one.
Well, there's two ways. You've either got your LMS linked directly to your HR system, which is recording who's gone where and done what. Are they or are they not taking time off? A little more depth for that question would be wonderful, but how do we report on HR measurements? It's just a direct correlation between, we are obviously tracking who has joined us on any learning intervention, and we are also we're providing that detail to the internal HR department. So assuming the internal HR department is tracking sickness or impact in the workplace, they will know that internally. We'll only be able to provide half the answer for what these people are doing. But Hilary or Seth, do you have anything to add to that?
I guess the key thing I would add is when you're looking at this kind of thing, you want to be looking at what the baseline is in a team, because obviously you don't want to be looking just at one person, because that's just not statistically significant. So you want to be looking at the baseline measures in a team. What are the attendance records, etc., for a particular team, and then when their manager goes on the training, how does that shift? Similarly, if you've got the opportunity to see how two teams are, where both of them have got similar records, to see whether over a year one shifts more than another when someone's been on this course or that course. So you do need to be measuring the key things internally, and then correlating that with who goes on training and what shifts there are. But something like a reduction in sickness, one of the challenges is just recognizing that that doesn't happen within a month or 2 months. That happens over a year. So you'd want to do a baseline measurement before they go on the course and then a year later. And similarly with the 9-box exercise, if you're looking at a manager and their team, how many people do they have in the bottom left-hand box? And how many of those are still there a year later? You'd be wanting to look at that. Maybe 6 months, you could have a difference. But most organizations do the 9-box exercise once a year rather than twice a year. Those are my immediate thoughts. Seth, anything else you'd add?
No, I wouldn't add to that. I agree with you entirely there, Hilary. Absolutely.
Cool. And any other questions, guys, that you'd like to throw in? Or should we call it a day and just say thank you to our guys?
Zach, also just hopefully
Yeah.
the person who put that question in, hopefully that's useful. If you want to have more of a discussion, do get in touch and let us know, and we can have a more detailed discussion.
Definitely. And I think Paddy is a natural born networker. So if anyone wants to spend 15 minutes on a call with Paddy, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions one-to-one if that's needed, or if there's any delighted to, or if there's any challenges that you're currently facing. So I think on that note, we'll say thanks to Hilary, Seth and Paddy. Thank you to all the attendees for joining, and yeah, wishing everyone a good end to the week and hopefully not too much snow over the weekend. in April, mental times we live in, eh?
Thanks very much, Zach. Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Have a great day.